Jay here for Stretford, Paddock, and this is the one-on-one interview. Today we're talking to respected German journalist Constantin Eckner. He's been all over the Jadon Sancho news pretty much for the last few weeks, months, years. It seems like this has been going on for quite some time. Constantin, thanks for joining us. Just to give us an update, because I know it's sort of changing every day, where do we stand with Jadon Sancho to Manchester United? What's the latest news?
Yeah, hi Jay, thanks for having me. I mean, the reports you've seen in past 2 days, I mean, as you said, it's a really every involving story. But the updates you've seen is that, and they are mostly correct, meaning that United decided to make another move or make a move this week, early this week. I mean, they decided it last week, but waited a little bit, and the reports that came out, and I wrote about it on Twitter on Sunday that were correct, that they got in touch with Borussia Dortmund again. I mean, it's not like they are sending emails to each other. It's a little bit more difficult and complicated, especially with this transfer. But they got in touch, and Dortmund tried to shut down all these talks, basically saying that we won't accept any offer that's well below the 120 million euro mark, which has been their calling card, basically saying that they want they want 120 million euros, so 108 million pounds roughly, and tried to shut it down. And United backed off a little bit, but now they are still thinking about making another move. And the situation has also evolved to an extent because yesterday Dortmund played Bayern Munich in the German Super Cup. And Sancho was not part of the squad that traveled to Munich. And first, and I reported myself, said that Jadon Sancho is not actively protesting anything that's going on, and basically Dortmund's decision to keep him for another season. I might have to correct myself a little bit, because as one of my colleagues put it today, Sancho might suffer from Dembele-litis or itis, basically what Ousmane Dembele did a couple of years ago when he tried to forced his way out from Dortmund going to Barcelona. And of course, Dembele is now also in the picture, and that's also something that's true. I mean, he is in the picture. It's also an evolving story, but of course, he would be the second choice because United are still trying to get Sancho, and Sancho right now doesn't seem too happy that that he has to stay, or at least, I mean, that's also difficult to say because protesting is one thing, and more or less being not happy about it is another thing. I mean, there's like gray area. You can be unhappy about the situation, but then maybe decide to go on and of course play the season for Dortmund. So I don't think he will like go on strike for the rest of the season if he has to stay. That's not what he wants to do, because it's not a good thing to do. And I don't think he will. And I also think that his agent would advise him not to do anything like that. And his agent is also in the picture and has been in the picture for quite a while, as has the intermediary that's also kind of Marco Lichtsteiner, the brother of Stefan Lichtsteiner, who's also in the picture, and also someone who has done a lot of business for Borussia Dortmund. So that's there are different people involved. Man United, of course, Sancho and his agent, Dortmund, Michael Zorc as a sporting director, and also his kind of agent he has, who does a lot of transfer business for them. So as you say, I mean, 4 or 5 parties basically that are involved. So that makes things even more complicated, because it's not like a one-on-one talk between Woodward and Zorc or something like that. That would be easier.
It certainly would. In the case of his Dembele-itis, as you've said, do you think that could help force for a move if he is unhappy and if he is saying, I'm not well? Do you think that Dortmund would be more open to selling him? Do you think that could help, or do you think that that's not going to make any difference?
If you would have asked me a while ago, I would have said yes. It would probably help to force a move, force his way out and sign with United, because it helped, or it worked for Dembele, and it worked also for Aubameyang. Also different situations, and every situation is unique in a way. Still, I think what this time might tempt Dortmund to keep him, even if he's unhappy about it, is first that he's not going on strike properly. He's not like going on strike for the rest of the season. So, I mean, they know that. And also because Zorc and also Sebastian Kehl is also involved with the former Dortmund player, is also now involved with all things talent recruitment and so on. He also stated very strongly that they don't sell him. And I think at some point they think they could lose face if they just now turn around, make basically 180, especially to the German audience, because you have to think about it. In German media and also among the Dortmund fans, there hasn't been any real talk about Jadon Sancho leaving after the announcement on August 10th, when Zorc said we keep him and it's over. So they might see themselves losing a lot of their reputation, especially Zorc. So they might be tempted to keep him. That's basically what's going on in Dortmund. Like when you talk to people on the ground, they know that Dortmund is in a difficult spot right now, but they also know that they might show a strong hand there.
We'll have to see. Do you think the only way this deal is going to happen is if Manchester United pay the 120 million euros that Dortmund want? Do you think that's the only way it happens, or do you think it might even be too far for that now?
I think after all, yes, the deal has to be in the ballpark of 120 million, and then you can talk about, and that's what also I think that what took United, or that's not what I think, but that basically what happened is that United was thinking about how to structure the deal, what to offer them. It's not like, they roll out of bed and make a number up and then they send it to Dortmund, especially about, what are the add-ons, how to structure it, other installments, when to pay them, and that makes these deals even more difficult and even more complicated. And I mean, Dortmund is also quite well versed when it comes to structuring deals. So now they might be on the receiving side, but I think it has to be in the ballpark at least of 120 million. The overall sum has to be at least, and also, I mean, the last numbers that were thrown around by United were more 98, 100 million euros. Sometimes a little bit difficult with the conversion rates, makes things even complicated. Sometimes the Germans say it's 100 million and then it's actually 98 million, but in that region. And so they are off by 20 million or so. So they have to come closer to that. But as I said, the black card here is what Sancho is also telling the club, and what his agent is telling the club. And there's another element to it. I would say is that few weeks ago, Jamie Bino Gittens, the winger from Manchester City, 16-year-old winger, signed with Borussia Dortmund, and he also is advised by one of the agents that also advises Jadon Sancho. So it's not like the agent, Sancho's agent is like in an ongoing battle with Dortmund. They are also making deals with each other. So it's not like they are fighting all the time. And so there's also, the relationship is not that bad between Dortmund and Sancho's agent or Sancho's team, I should say. So you should keep that in mind. But the player, of course, likes the idea, or has liked the idea for a while of joining United. And that's quite obvious. It's not like Dortmund is in his mind the worst club and he has to suffer for a season. I mean, they will probably end up being second in the league or something like that, and maybe reach a quarterfinal of Champions League. Not a bad time for him. But the idea, him going to United, is something he has had in his mind for a while.
What do you get the sort of impression, the feeling is from Dortmund about the way Manchester United have done business? Because Dortmund set this deadline, they set a price, and Manchester United have more or less ignored both of those things. Yeah,
they aren't happy, to put it mildly, with how United conducted business, because it seemed to Dortmund and to people here, and I mean, that was the impression a lot of people got, including Dortmund, that United didn't take Dortmund and basically the initial demands earlier in the summer, not really seriously. That basically they were not really thinking about this. Of course, it is an artificial deadline. It's a made-up deadline in a way. It's not a real transfer market deadline. but it is a deadline, or was something Dortmund told them or told the intermediary also, because they were also thinking, all right, if we sell Sancho, then we have at least enough time to get a replacement, which is more difficult in this market, in this year, than it might have been last year or the year before, when it was easier to get a new player. Because a lot of clubs don't sell anyone, and Dortmund was thinking, all right, if we have to get a replacement, we have at least a lot of time, and then we can get someone, integrate the player into the team, all these things, and people aren't happy. And also, and that's not only regarding Dortmund, it's also RB Leipzig, for instance, because United made a brief approach to Leipzig about Dayo Upamecano, the center back, with also an offer that was below his buyout clause that will be in effect next year. And there's this feeling, and there's also a kind of reputation thing in Germany, that some of these clubs and their sporting directors and managers and CEOs think, like, United is a rich club and one of the wealthiest clubs in the world. Why are they lowballing us now? Or why are they coming with these offers, especially when there's like a buyout clause, and it's probably, or the buyout clause is known for the agents? Why are they coming with an offer below that? Or why are they coming with offers that are well below what we demand? We know that there's a pandemic, but there's also more to it, and United should maybe take us more seriously. And there's also, I mean, it's not only about business, but knowing some of these sporting directors personally, there are egos involved, and they have pride, and they don't want to be handled and treated like they are well below United in terms of their reputation and their status, which is, especially in terms of Dortmund and even Leipzig, I mean, they are not that below United. And United has the reputation of a world-class and global brand, but Dortmund also is, to an extent, an international brand. So it's not like you should just talk or treat someone like Zorc like he's not worth it. And I think they were really in a way a bit insulted that United didn't take them seriously with the August 10th deadline. And yes, as I said, there are egos and there's pride involved, and why not? I mean, these are people who earn a lot of money and have achieved a lot in their careers, so it comes natural to them to have some sort of pride, at least.
Yeah, totally understand it, and I think it's been a bit embarrassing at times the way United have gone about their business. Do you think that maybe Jadon Sancho, if it doesn't happen this summer, Jadon Sancho to Manchester United will eventually happen, maybe next summer?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's also that has been a rumor on the ground for a while now, that there might be an agreement. All right, if that was a few weeks ago before he got ill, but no, there was a rumor, there was a talk that maybe they had reached an agreement with the agent, basically saying that he will stay for another year, but then of course he can leave and can join the club that makes the highest bid, which will probably be United. I mean, there aren't a lot of clubs in the running. I think, I mean, that's speculation now, but I think the only other club that might be interested in him next year would be Chelsea, because they have the funding and they have shown some interest in him. But this year they signed other players. They pulled the trigger on Werner and Havertz, especially Werner, when they got noticed or when they noticed that Liverpool can't fund his transfer. So they pulled the trigger on other players, but they might be interested and they might have the funding because of their owner and how he makes his money. But yes, I mean, that's basically the feeling that if he stays for another season, he can definitely leave next year, which will also put Dortmund in a kind of a tough spot, because Erling Haaland's buyout clause will also be in effect very soon. So I mean, I don't know if he will go right away, but there will be a lot of offers for Erling Haaland. I mean, obviously. So maybe you lose two top players, but that wouldn't have been, or that wouldn't be the first time for Dortmund. I mean, after all, they have produced a lot of world-class talent, but also have lost a lot of them after a short while. But yeah, I mean, if he stays for another season, he will most definitely 99% go next year. That's just, unless there's some injuries or something, you never know. But usually he will leave, yes.
You mentioned that Erling Haaland, he was a target for Manchester United, and you mentioned about his buyout clause. What is that clause, and how likely do you think that even Manchester United could look at him again if he's got a buyout clause that's achievable?
I mean, it's lower than you think. Let's put it that way. It's not a 100 million clause actually, but that was also kind of part of the deal with Erling Haaland to say you get a buyout clause, not right away. And also these buyout clauses usually have to be triggered until April, for instance, because then the club has time to react to losing one of their key players. So it's lower than you think, and I believe that a lot of clubs will be interested in him. I don't know right now. I got the feeling, talking to him or seeing also him in matches and on a training ground, that he might want to stay for another year. I mean, he knows that even at 22 or so, still the world is open to him, and he can sign with almost any club in the world or any club in Europe, be it the Premier League or La Liga or even Serie A if he fancies a move to Juventus or something. So I don't think he is under any kind of pressure. With Jadon, it's also different because he feels more comfortable being in England. So that's different. I think with Holland, I mean, it's not like he has to go to England or has to go to Spain. I mean, I think he feels quite well in Germany, and also being Norwegian. I mean, he will always be away from home. It's different, of course, because I don't think he will return to the Norwegian league anytime soon. But yeah, I think there will be a lot of interest in him because his buyout clause is not that high. Same with what I mentioned, Upamecano, whose buyout clause will be 50 million euros next year. So for one of the best center backs in the world, sounds not that high. One caveat with that is, of course, how we don't know how the market will develop with the pandemic, and especially clubs that make a lot of their money with sports and not with not through outside investments, like Liverpool, for instance, and even to an extent United, of course. The funding or the finances will change to an extent, and maybe the offers will be lower, or will probably be lower. But I think for world-class talent, clubs are still intrigued to pay a lot of money for the world-class talent. I think the average player will be moved for less money, and that's already happening right now.
Do you think that maybe Manchester United could go back in for Upamecano next season when the buyout clause is there? Do you think that's a real possibility?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they have shown interest this season. There will be competitors. Liverpool, Arsenal, especially Liverpool, was in the mix a few weeks ago. So had him on their list. We're told that Leipzig won't sell. So unless there's an astronomical offer, of course. I mean, then they have to reconsider everything. Leipzig is also a club that usually they want to keep their players, but at some point they realize, all right, maybe the offer's too high. Or we have a buyout clause, like with Timo Werner, who had a buyout clause last year. No one paid or was willing to pay the buyout clause. This year, someone was willing to pay, and I think if a club comes around and says we are willing to pay the buyout clause, and Upamecano is fine with going to them, yes, and I think, I mean, and that's now a bit more speculation, not insider information, but I mean, looking at United and the team, of course, I mean, a good centre back could help a lot, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've been linked with almost every centre back on the planet this summer. So Upamecano, obviously, as you mentioned, fantastic young talent, and I think most Manchester United fans would be more than happy if he ended up at Old Trafford. Just before you go, Constantin, I wanted to ask you, I mean, last week after the Brighton win, you called it a crazy night, and you said there could be a wild week ahead for Manchester United. There's been talk of Ousmane Dembele. Do you think that deal, maybe the crazy deal, the wide deal that people weren't expecting, if we don't get Jadon Sancho, how realistic do you think Dembele to United is?
Yeah, I'm also sad that it might be a crazy week ahead of United fans, because I, at that point, had it almost confirmed that United will go for another bid for Jadon Sancho. And I thought, even if like the transfer doesn't go through, the deal is not done, it still will be a crazy week, because I know fans, United fans, I know a lot of them, or I talked to some of them, and I know that a lot of fans are just, they want to get a better team. I mean, they want to have some of these stars now playing for the Red Devils again. Because, I mean, yes, the team hasn't been that great, as all of you know, of course, and that's why I said I might get crazy, especially also because talking to some agents, United seems to be almost always in the mix when there's someone on the market. Not always, but almost always there's some talk. Yeah, we talk to United, or maybe, yeah, we at least offer the player to United because we know that they are interested, and they might be interested to sign him. Especially agents know that now, that United, especially because when you look at the team, they could United could sign a center back, another striker, a winger. All right, the center midfielder position is now, I think, closed, although there was some interest in Thiago, but Thiago said he wanted to go to Liverpool, but there was still some interest in him, even after the Van der Beek transfer. So, and Bayern was actually expecting United to maybe get into the mix, because it took so much time until Liverpool got going, and Bayern were pushing a little bit them to get it done before the season starts. So yeah, United is linked with a lot of players, or they are offered a lot of players. Absolutely, I think, and that has come through through some channels, is that they are in talks with Dembele's agent, who Moussa Sissoko, who is a Premier League guy. I mean, he is in England, so he has ties to just English football in general because of his past, and also because he knows the market very well, and he knows all the people that are in England. Dembele's dream club was Barca. Was the club he wanted to go when he left Dortmund. But of course, I mean, it looks like his agent, or even he, realizes that maybe even if it's only a move for 1 year, going to another club and bringing yourself back into the mix, and putting yourself out there on a bigger stage, because not playing for Barca or only being a super sub, basically coming in late in games, is not really helping him. And also there's chaos at Barca, as all of you know. So Dembele is in the mix with Luka Jovic, who's advised by Ramadani, the agent, who's also Ante Rebic, and now Mario Götze. So there is the situation that he was offered to United, like he was offered to a few other clubs. I don't know if United will go for Jovic. I think there are other things that have to be done before, also from a financial standpoint, before considering Jovic. But as I said, some of these players are offered to United because when they want to go to another big club, and they know that United might be interested, and there's a kind of a feeling that United is in a rebuilding phase. So why not? And why not going there? Especially that the squad is quite thin. I mean, even if Jovic wouldn't be a starter right away, I mean, he would get his time on the pitch. I guess at least for 30 minutes or so. So there's also that, and especially because his agent and the company that, or the agency that advises him, is does quite well with bringing the names out there of their clients, and getting them involved in discussions, and reaching out to clubs, and maybe making them interested in players. And that's basically what happened with Jovic. I don't think initially United was like, all right, we have to go for Jovic because he's out there on the market. It was a little bit the other way around. But as I said, that's why there are a lot of parties involved, and yeah, we will see. But that's why it's so intriguing. And we talked about the intermediary that sits with Marco Lichtsteiner, that's also involved in the Jadon Sancho negotiations. I mean, he was pivotal to sign Ousmane Dembele a few years ago when Dortmund wanted to get him. He was the closer of the deal. So you see, it's all these connections between A, B, C, and D. Yes, it's one big giant pool of agent players, clubs who are trying to get the best deals. That's why also sometimes some news you see on Twitter, or even reported, I think sometimes journalists have the best intentions, but because it's so complicated and you can't really see all the moving pieces sometimes, these reports are not always right. That's why I was also writing on Twitter that the numbers you see reported over the weekend on the bid that United is making, will be making, don't necessarily believe them, because at some point when there was reports on Saturday about it, I got the impression from talks to people that United wasn't even exactly sure what the number will be and how it will be structured. So how can you report on something if it's not actually done internally? But also on the other hand, we know that some clubs also are briefing journalists and maybe trying to create their own narratives to make themselves look better, or do some PR work through the papers, which is kind of common.
Yeah, definitely. United do like to brief the press quite a lot. Constantin, it's going to be an exciting week, I think, next week. And hopefully Manchester United will sign Jadon Sancho or another few talented players. We hope to bring in some players, as you mentioned. We know we need to strengthen. So we'll be keeping tabs on that as always. And it'll be good to catch up with you again as well soon. So Constantin Eckner, thanks for speaking to us today.
Thanks.
So that was respected German journalist Constantin Eckner. Lots going on there with Jadon Sancho, Ousmane Dembele, Upamecano as well. Looked like United may have missed out on that one. So we'll be keeping you posted over all the transfer news. For deadline day, we'll have lots of lives throughout the day. So any news that breaks, we'll be straight on it. So make sure you're hitting like, sharing and subscribe to Stretford Paddock. I've been Jay. Thanks for watching.